Miles in. Halliburton on a heater right now.
I'm learning to listen, Reggie. Learning to listen to my big brother, Reggie Miller. He knows a thing or two.
Well, normally what you see is guys who are playing in the All-Star game and they play in that whole city. Are you kidding me right now? Are you kidding me right now?
We got Halliburton.
Are you kidding me right now?
What is up, Pacers Nation? You are listening to the Pacers Post Up, brought to you by the brothers of basketball, Brad and Ryan. Tyrese Halliburton, the ambassador for the city, for the Pacers franchise, and maybe one day for this entire league. It was All-Star Indy 2024, and it did not disappoint. We're going to recap it all here, winners and losers from the week that was. We'll preview the remaining 26 games of the season and have a little fun with some end-of-the-year wagers. We appreciate you guys listening. Be sure to check us out on all of our social media channels. This is the Pacers Post Up. All right, we are back here. Listen to the Pacers Post Up, getting ready to recap the week that was at All-Star Indy 2024. Obviously, this is something that has been on the calendar for quite a while, so we're going to get into just a high-level recap here today. Wrote a little article that I may put on a Substack post if you want to check out, but we'll kind of go into the highlights of that, spend some time now. Obviously, you know, back half of the season, back third of the season, whatever you want to call it. We played at home against Detroit last night, so we've got 25 left on the schedule for the remainder of the season. And then Ryan and I are going to kind of do a little wagering discussion.
Just checking in on where Vegas sees us. And you might turn to the talking heads on TV, but remember, they are the experts.
Yeah, correct. So hopefully it'll be a fun episode. I don't know if we'll go, the full hour that we have been going as of late, but just kind of want to dive in high level. So I was, as far as All-Star is concerned, I was pretty much there for everything.
Yep.
So I made the decision to stay downtown as the weather was turning.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, on Friday afternoon. So we went down. Well, let's start here. We went down for the tip-off event on Thursday night, which we were very fortunate. We had a family member that was able to get some host committee passes for that. So we went to the tip-off at Unity Plaza.
Yep.
We saw the T-Pain show, the fireworks, the Connor Daly dropping off Tyrese Halliburton. I thought it was
a drone show.
It
was at night. It was at like midnight.
Oh,
I guess. I saw some buddies post it.
So we had gotten, I think it was Anne-Marie Tiernan had tipped, she's friends with our grandfather, who's even at 92, still very connected in the community, which is unbelievable. Maybe we'll get him on the podcast at some point. I'm sure he'd love to be on. But no, we got tipped off about the drone show, missed that, but I thought it was fun. They brought back some of the legends, and that was a theme throughout this entire weekend was, paying some homage to Indiana basketball. There was a lead-in with a Reggie Miller, Isaiah Thomas, Larry Bird piece on TNT.
Yep.
I don't know if you saw that, but there were some really cool little nuggets in there. And again, I don't want to get into that. We're kind of talking about the experience, but we did the road show, got to see the Inside the NBA, TNT crew. Got to see DJ Diesel, which was pretty fun. So, it was. Listen, I'll just kind of dive right into some of my winners and losers of the weekend, if you will.
Yep.
Very high level, and I did think that the city of Indianapolis was a winner. This weekend. Sure. Obviously, just to have the game in general, I think. A lot of what we've seen in terms of some of the capital improvements at the field house with the plaza, all kind of coming together for this week.
Yep.
And the arena received high marks. I know Gainbridge Fieldhouse was reposting some things from, the talking heads, if you will, about how impressed they were with the facilities and rightfully so. But Indy, we talked about it in the last episode. Indy does these events well.
Yep.
And I think even despite Mother Nature's best efforts with the snowstorm on Friday and, let's call it mid-teen temperatures, it's all right there. There's skywalks everywhere. You can walk inside for the most part. So I thought it was well done. And frankly, Lucas Oil worked out better than I thought. going in. So I thought Indy was a winner coming out of this deal. I thought, just real briefly, and there's been a lot of talk out, coming out of Sunday. I thought a clear loser was, fans of competitive basketball.
yeah. You didn't get much of that.
And you had mentioned, Adam Silver's quotes on Saturday. And I don't know exactly what he said, but it was something to the effect of, we understand that it hasn't been the best product.
As competitive as can be. And I don't know what he thought was going to change, though. He had, and I forget, I think it was Oscar, Big O, gave a speech to all the players beforehand.
Yeah. And it was the Legends Brunch.
Yeah,
yes.
They tried to do, but especially in basketball too, and the NFL struggles with this, when they can take the weight off, it's really hard to get these guys to compete. And so we've been seeing this for years. They've tried, a lot of different things with going to a scored point or a specific point to score, doing, team versus or US versus world.
Yep.
But it's, you get out there and then people are only shooting threes and throwing oops.
Yeah.
That's just what it turns into.
Well, there was 168 3-point attempts.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Record-breaking 168. Put your mind around. It was the best way to describe it, and I was in the building. It was like a layup line.
Yeah,
it was like it was almost
it's your turn, my turn.
Correct. Well, it was always Dame's turn.
Yeah,
but
not when Tyrese was passing it weirdly.
Yeah.
He didn't get any of the assists from Tyrese.
Yeah,
but.
it was. We can maybe touch on that, but it was a miss. I thought Adam Silver kind of had to eat his words a little bit, and he did. I don't know if you saw the post game. I know you said you didn't watch it.
He wasn't happy.
Yeah, in the post game trophy presentation, his line literally wasn't "I'm close here." It was something to the effect of, "To the Eastern Conference All-Stars, well, you scored the most points. Congratulations." And that was it. Mm-hmm. He really did not have a lot of comments, and I'm sure it's because he had kind of promised a more competitive game, and it was not that in any way, shape, or form. And I know the injury narrative is what drives a lot of this. Yeah. I also think, and listen, I'm not going to lay this at the feet of one or two individuals, but I think when you listen to how Kobe used to talk, or Larry Bird talks, or Isaiah, or MJ, or some of these guys from the previous eras, they took this game as a moment of pride, as a moment of, I'm gonna show I'm better than you,
right, on this stage with all the best of us.
100%. And I think we're in a league, and I don't. Again, I'm not going to lay this at the feet of LeBron. I think his ego plays part of why he doesn't come out and always compete in these exhibitions. It's why he hasn't done the slam dunk contest. But we are in a generation of basketball where everybody seems to be super friendly with everybody. They're all boys. It's this brotherhood, network, fraternity, if you will. And I just don't think there's that same edge walking into a game like this. And so the NBA's got their work cut out for them. So the last 2 years have been the lowest rated All-Star games in the last 20. So
wow.
this year was up, I want to say 10 or 15% from last year, but they're the two lowest in the last 20 years. So they've got to figure it out. I don't know if there's financial incentivization or, I know, listen, we were talking to our brother last night, a tie-in to playoff incentives or, the West or the East gets I'm not a huge fan of that.
Because if you don't have a representative in there, but you're still in the thick of things, you're kind of just left to hope for the best.
For sure. The only thing that I was thinking of, and I'm curious your opinion, I know it's, let's say if you're an all-star and you make the game, presumably these are going to be the players that are gunning for All-NBA, MVP, most improved. Maybe you give them some sort of credit in terms of you do the All-Star game, you get 2 additional games towards your 65 count.
Yeah,
or something along those lines. Just, you got to, they can still play the game and not compete.
Yeah.
I get that, but you're at least trying to make it, somewhat of a little bit more buy-in from the players. At one point, Luka threw like a 3/4 heave off the top of the shot clock. He was trying to get a 2-for-1, but it was like, come on. The game was a mess. So I thought that was a clear loser of the weekend. And And I don't want to, I don't want to hog the mic here. I'll get through a couple more real quick. Tyrese Halliburton is, to me, a clear winner.
Oh, he was, and I think JJ had the best. He was a clear ambassador for Indiana all weekend. Yep. He's a certified pro with the media in terms of how to answer every question, always bringing the same energy. He's got that lovable that literally everybody loves. Everyone wants to interview him, and he was, I don't know how he was on everything. I tried to watch most stuff that occurred in all of his interviews like I usually do. It was not possible.
Ryan, I went back. He did the JJ podcast when they were in New York.
Yep.
Came back, did the Pat McAfee show.
Yep.
He rode in the IndyCar with Daly down to the tip-off.
It was Woj,
Went and did the Woj podcast. Yep. He was at, I can't remember what it was on Friday. There was, I saw him personally on Friday at the crossover. So he was at the Starry booth inside the crossover. He did another appearance. I can't remember what it was, but I know I saw it. He was on the sidelines for the Rising Stars.
Yep.
Turnaround, All-Star practice on Saturday, HBCU, skills challenge, 3-point, and then in the game on Sunday. So I over under on number of hours of sleep. I hope you guys hammered the under if there was a line out there. But he could not have done better.
Yeah.
In that role.
And the cool thing about Tyrese is we talk a lot about India, about our players who don't get a lot of appreciation for what they've done. Between the in-season tournament and now the All-Star game, Tyrese Halliburton gets his credit for the player that he is. And he well-deserved. He is going to be, if he plays the 65 games, he'll find himself on one of those All-NBA teams. Yep. He's one of the best guards, if not the best, point guard with, I'm quoting in my hands over here, but that style. But he is a very popular member in the NBA, which even when we had some of those guys like Paul George and Vic, they never got here, I don't think, at least media-wise. You can argue play maybe, but...
No, I would agree with you, and I think a lot of it is, in my mind, it's two things. Style of play, because it's unique. Very. He is a different player.
We saw his Jay Will pass. Now, it took 2 bounces to get to Dame, but I still loved him. People he missed Giannis. It's he wasn't going for Giannis.
Yeah, he wasn't going for Giannis. And to be fair to him, guys are fading out to the 3-point line. When Jay Will was playing, it was more of a, I'm cutting to the rim type of thing. So,
but continue,
But no, but I think the second part of it is what you hit on. It's his personality. He Shaq was. So I got another. I'll end up posting this. This is the first article I've finally finished. I've got 1 million in draft, but this was something I touched on. Shaq was quoted on Thursday night. They brought Reggie out on the set at the road show, and we weren't there, I think, for this, or I don't remember hearing it, but he asked Reggie, he said, after KD's gone, after LeBron's gone, after Steph is gone, can Tyrese Halliburton be the face of this league or a face of this league? And before he let Reggie answer, Shaq said, I say yes.
Wow.
So, and that's somebody, listen, inside the NBA TNT crew, that's as big a platform from a media perspective as you're going to get from a pundit or a quote unquote expert. So I thought that was encouraging. Listen, it's always going to be Indiana, but with the way things have gone via the collective bargaining agreement, and Wojnarowski was talking about this a little bit on local radio, they're making it hard for these 3 max player super teams.
Next year, these teams like the Suns and the Celtics are going to have to make real decisions. They won't be able to keep their teams together, at least currently constructed.
No, they won't. And you see it already in terms of how much they've had to even gut their bench just to get to where they're at.
Exactly.
And they have no depth. That's why Milwaukee, is in the position they're in. And frankly, the Suns, while they've been getting better, got off to a slow start. And so it's going to be interesting. Tyrese Halliburton is on the rise. He's got to stay healthy. I thought he looked great last night. And we'll kind of get into the Detroit game here in a little bit. But just a couple other things. All-Star Saturday night, we were both in the building.
Yep.
I think, as much of... Listen, I was not high on Lucas Oil. I thought it was better than expected. The LED court was, for that event, I hope they don't rush to try and bring this into a regular season environment. That's not what that's for. But we
don't need more distractions.
No, there's
for this perfect.
For this it was perfect. I thought the Steph Sabrina thing was great. Could not have gone. It was really, there was no loser in that. She ties the same score that Dame won and everybody had in the first round.
The only loser was Kenny the Jet.
Yeah, with his Kenny got himself in a bit of a corner on the broadcast, and sometimes you got to be careful.
No, but she was great. I mean, she should have won, but she was going against Steph. She was going against anybody in that competition. She probably she would have taken.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I thought it was all well done, but we have to spend a couple seconds on the slam dunk contest because I really am. I went back and I kind of did a deep dive, and this thing, there has to be a change. I mean, I understand that we did see what I would say was probably one really great dunk on Saturday night.
It was McClung's first,
and,
right?
And it was Mac McClung's first dunk where he does, he jumps over the two guys,
double tap,
and that was impressive. Albeit you had to see the slow motion replay to really appreciate it. I'm not sure the judges did. And then the entire the judging
they
process.
Have never gotten this right of the dunk, and we'll talk about the players who are involved in all that. This has been a staple for years, and they almost messed it up again. Now, I thought Toppin should have probably made it over Jaylen Brown, but at least they almost didn't have McClung in there, which would have been ridiculous. These guys, They don't know what they're looking for. This is a fan thing. Continue though. That's a bigger problem.
So there were a lot of misses. I mean, the judges were a miss. I think the field is a miss, and this is no disrespect to Mac McClung, who's clearly a phenomenal athlete and dunker. He's a G League player.
Yeah.
So now and the G League has their own dunk contest, by the way. I was there this weekend. So it was,
nice.
And it was fine. It was over at the NBA crossover it was actually Saturday afternoon. We're now having to subsidize. I guess my point, or where I'm trying to get at here, is it's an NBA slam dunk contest. It's NBA Saturday night. It's a showcase. And we're at the point where 50% of the field is G League. And Mac McClung is kind of doing what I would say, putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. He's not an NBA player. Phenomenal athlete. But if you're going to go outside the NBA, then why are we not talking about YouTube dunkers and things like that?
Because the best.
Right, because at this point, nobody's watching Mac McClung on League Pass.
Yeah,
I mean, the Osceola Magic are not a hot ticket team. So, I think and Jaylen Brown, which maybe some of the worst dunks.
Now that is fair. Let's at least give Jaylen Brown, an All-Star, credit for doing it. He was not great, and we kind of hinted that we didn't think he was going to be particularly great, but at least he was out there.
I 100%. The unfortunate part, though, Ryan, is that it completely backfired because now any future All-Stars, I'm not going to that ridicule.
Yeah.
I mean, why put yourself, and that's where we're at with this, is that nobody wants to participate in it. And Stephen A had a hot take, I don't know if you heard it, about how he was basically laying at the feet of LeBron. And I think we can all say it was interesting. So that came out. Then Vince Carter was on his podcast. Did you see this?
I think I saw the Stephen A. I don't know if I saw
Vince. So Vince came out, and I guess this was obviously years ago, but there was a point in time where the league had offered Vince Carter, Kobe Bryant, Tracy McGrady, and LeBron James $1 million each to participate in the dunk contest.
That's been fucking awesome.
And apparently, and Vince was being very coy, apparently not everybody was on board.
Yeah.
And so interestingly enough, Vince, Tracy, and Kobe have all been in the dunk contest before. So, I mean, you can think what you want. LeBron, no LeBron. I do think his ego probably prevented him from ever playing or ever participating.
Yeah. It's a shame he never did because now we're seeing All-Stars not want to do it. And two, another thing that goes underrated, and I didn't look back, so it's whatever. If you go back, I think it was the Blake Griffin dunk contest. He, at that dunk contest, said next year he's in.
Really?
So he has hinted multiple times that he was going to do it. And I promise you, this is very true because he was so hyped up. It was awesome. This was Blake's real rise.
Yeah.
I forget who he's going against. It might have been in the Dwight era.
Dwight Howard. I was going to say it's probably Dwight.
And he was on courtside saying, next year, this one's for me. And so he's always, and look, we don't want to go too down a rabbit hole because I could do this all day, but we don't. It's, he always does this back and forth with it. And now that doesn't mean it's all on him. There are other guys who have chosen not to do it that, are, and it's not like every All-Star. Tyrese obviously can't be in this. He doesn't have it. But we have a ton of athletic All-Stars. Shout out to Giannis, who has done it.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'll tell you this. Karl Anthony Towns was putting on it. She was the only one on Sunday that was doing anything from a dunk perspective. I think we're at a point where it's a no-brainer for Mac McClung because he's now getting brought up to the biggest stage.
Huge win for Toppin.
Yeah, but all the stars, they have nothing to gain.
Nothing.
So the league has to figure out a way to get. I mean, this thing is on life support, in my opinion. At the bare minimum, I would be a fan of moving it down a rung and finishing the night with the 3-point contest.
Yeah, that one is definitely elevated.
Excuse me. I think that is a better product at this point. And so I don't know if the league's considering that. I know we've touched on the idea of could you get a one-on-one bracket, even if it's not, even if it's not all stars, even if you had a collection of rising stars or some of your top rookies or whatever. Again, it comes back to, are these guys do they have the edge? Do they want to go out and risk having a bad showing?
Yeah, we get to see some of that on Team USA when they come together in the summers. You get to see all those clips. Miles Turner's, I've seen him go against KD. It was a couple years ago. He was
PG, Harden, Kyrie, Durant, all that.
Post-practice, they hang out, and that would be very cool to see. Now, do you section off half the court? Does it turn into just basically like hit to dribble move, pull up? Is that what it's going to turn into? But I'm with you. It's I don't know how you get these guys, and they've tried a lot of things. You hit it at the very beginning. I don't know how you get these guys energized and wanting to do this, because that is the key. We can change the format. We can do all this, but until the players, until KD, LeBron, Booker, all sit down and say, hey, we're going to do this, and I'm going to come at you here.
Yeah.
And if I have a bad showing, I don't think like anybody would come out of the All-Star break being like, KD, whoop Booker. Like, I don't know about Booker. Now, they're on the same team, so bad example. But, who would think that?
No.
They're in the All-Star game. I mean, we can – and it's one night. We've all seen shooters have bad nights.
For sure. I think we've got to get the players bought in at another level. And that kind of segues to one of my last things I just want to touch on real briefly, because there's 2 points here, one of which is close to home for Pacers fans. But I thought another clear winner out of this whole thing was the G League. We've talked about Mac McClung, but also on the night of the Rising Stars.
Shocking victory. Thank God Vegas had those lines. I would have bet the house on that team, and I hit it. It was the team I thought was going to win with Wemby and –
well, it was Team Powell, it was Wembanyama and Brandon Miller. So the top 2 picks from last year's draft. And I hate to say it, but it was the exact same thing we've been talking about this whole time. They came out and it was like, we're just going to go through the motions.
Try to get a flashy 3 here. If I can get the fast break, I'll take it. If not, I'm just going to put a hand up on D.
It's exactly what it was. I mean, you could see it almost from the jump. I think it was like 25-13, so they got doubled up almost right out of the gate. They did go on a run. I think it was like a 15-4 run.
They cut it back
to 1. But the G League was clearly maximizing the opportunity, taking advantage of the platform, which I thought was great for them. And they had a ton of stuff for the G League at the crossover. So I saw the dunk contest. They had their own, what they called like up next game. So it was like a Rising Stars of some, I think there were some Ignite players in there, but
I'm sure.
I thought they did a really good job of propping that kind of minor league presence up this weekend. And, that's for us here in Indy, I'm excited about it because the Mad Ants are moving down to Noblesville. It's going to be something that we'll be a little bit closer to. Obviously, Jarris Walker just came off the road trip. We can touch on some of Carlisle's comments. I think that's worth a minute or two. But the other side of that with the G League at the Rising Stars game was Benedict Mathurin. And he was
doing his usual thing.
He was exactly right. Airball to dunk, hung on the rim, talking mess to Jaden Ivey, which we didn't get any payoff last night from that. I was literally thinking before the game, I'm like, if there's an over-under on technicals, I need to hammer the over because, and there was one, but it was not related to Mathurin and Ivey.
I think part of that, we just jumped on him so early that there wasn't a bunch of tension in the building.
Not a lot of edge. That's probably exactly what it was. But I thought Benedict had a great weekend. He actually looked really good. He had a pretty slick pass to, I forget who it was. The guy from Utah. I'm going to forget his name, the big guy from Utah.
Oh, Walker.
Yeah,
Walker
Walker.
Kessler.
Yeah, there you go, Walker. I wanted to say Walker Hayes, but that was the guy that was performing. He's one of the artists. But anyways, all in all, I mean, I think there were a lot of things to like if you were a Pacers fan coming out of All-Star Weekend. Beside the weather, I think everything else got off pretty much without a hitch. The league's got some things to figure out, in my opinion. It'll be interesting to see how they do it in San Francisco next year. But it was a lot of fun, and we're now kind of in right back into.
So I know where you're going. I wanted to make one more slight All-Star Weekend before we go on. There's one thing still, and I'm going back to the dunk contest. We talked a lot, but I wanted to hint. Ever since the Levine-Aaron Gordon dunk contest, which at least I'm 27. For my era, that is the dunk contest that we remember. And it's one of the best of all time.
Yeah, most competitive of all time.
I was going to say competitive of two guys going at it. I think since then there's a huge intimidation because every dunk contest is now compared backwards to that one.
For sure.
So every time we have one, it's like, oh, well, they didn't do what Levine did and what Aaron Gordon did. And that isn't an unrealistic standard. Those two guys put in a lot of work. And specifically Aaron Gordon, actually, always talked about he thought about it a lot. But one thing I think the players have lost a little bit is the creativity in dunks. Everybody likes to tell you we've seen them all. Yeah. But we've kind of lost the show of it. I mean, now how many times do we watch somebody jump over something?
Oh, I know.
I mean, that's kind of all we see. And I'm not even saying, you can still do your windmills and 360s, but I think back to some of the dunk contests, and not to hit Blake Griffin jumping over a car, Dwight Howard with the Superman, Dwight when he pulled in a second backboard and raised it to 12 feet. Yep. There are things, Paul George, when he was in it and turned all the lights and turned on the LED. Yep. I think there's a little more these players can do to kind of pay homage, or it's like you said, you can pay homage to old dunkers, you can do new things, even that are similar dunks, but just add a little bit more to it. Because this is a show and fun. And so when you just go over there and it's like, how many times have we seen a guy jump over Shaq?
Well, I mean, I was going to say, we saw it twice on Saturday.
That's what I mean.
And granted, Mac McClung didn't post up. Jaime Jaquez Jr. did. And you know what? I'm sorry. I'm not trying to pick on Jaquez, but we knew the minute he was announced that he had no shot. There was no anticipation or excitement there. So that's where we're at, is that, and listen, Jaylen Brown probably was the most proppy and using, he had the left-handed glove. He had the, I guess, eyes closed. His execution. I'm not sure if it was a dab or he was trying to pretend like his eyes were closed. Either way, it didn't work, and he dropped the TD Garden in, and you know what? He got a smattering of boos, as he should, being an Indy. But I agree with you. We've got to restore. Levine and Gordon are not. That is not the expectation.
And we can't compare it to them.
That's the high watermark.
Who's at the dunk contest saying that? It's like that's one in every 10 years. You get something.
The fact that Aaron Gordon is not a slam dunk champion is wild, absurd, because he's one of the best of all time. You see some of those dunks and you're like, oh my God.
Well, but that's even what I'm kind of pointing at, is one of the best dunks on that is, I'm sorry, I don't know the Orlando Magic's mascot.
I know what you're talking about.
He's doing a full 360 on a hoverboard or whatever they call it, and he's got to time it and then windmill it. It really was just kind of a really good windmill, but just how it all came together was awesome.
Yeah. There's got to be some more buy-in. I think, we know the product. Listen, it's why we all go. It's why we tune in. It's higher. That Saturday night's higher rated than the Sunday game. Yeah. We've got to get. I'm not trying to advocate to get G League guys out of there, but if we're going to go to G League, why don't we just get guys that can dunk? If that's really what it's all about, because nobody. I mean, frankly, Jacob Toppin's there in part because of his brother, and Mac McClung's there just because he's a wildly freakish athlete. And so, listen, it was a lot of fun. I hope everybody got to check out at least some part of it. I can tell you this. I mean, I would, having gone, I would not go to the game again. I just wouldn't. If I didn't have a personal rooting interest, beyond basketball to attend, I would not have gone. But that's okay. It was a lot of fun. Indy showed out really well, and those will be some memories we hold on to for a long time. But we now have basketball to get back to. So let's just kind of do a state of the union here on where we're at. 26 games to go coming out of the break. We are 1-0, thankfully, against the bottom of the barrel Detroit Pistons, who actually played a really good second half last night.
They're 3-7 in their last 10. They are not the dumpster fire they were at the beginning. They have not lost 29 straight or wherever, 27. I forget where it ended. But yeah, we wanted to win. We came out and crushed them, which was great. But
the most encouraging thing for me is Tyrese looked like Tyrese.
Yep.
And he talked about it after the game in terms of feeling like he could get to his spots a little bit more. Maybe not always knocking it down, but he got off to a hot start, had a couple of dunks that looked like he had that explosiveness back. So that was really good. Another thing that we really didn't find out until I want to say maybe Tuesday, Neesmith's injury from the Toronto game?
It was the last one, so.
I think it was the Toronto game. Neesmith's injury is not as severe as it could have been. There were some fears that it may be a little worse, so he's more on a day-to-day kind of situation. It sounds like Jalen Smith could have played last night if needed. So we're getting guys healthy, which is what we need. We've got a relatively easy slate. I think some things adjusted in terms of our opponents' records, but we're in the bottom half. I want to say 17th or 18th in terms of remaining strength of schedule. So I guess, Ryan, from that standpoint, what do we need to see? Where are we at, and what do we want to see for this last third of the season as we're currently sitting in 6th in a very jumbled Eastern Conference? Where are you at with this group?
Yeah, you've hinted at it. We've got a much easier schedule, and one of the big talking points in Pacers media has definitely been we can't beat the bad teams. Tony East had a great stat that I think we're second worst in the league on the bottom 5 team records. That's the Charlottes, the Wizards, the Pistons, and that.
Yep.
I will say this. I think that is a little bit overblown as our record against the top teams are good. I'd rather have it that way. We have had, through the Nate McMillan years, how many did we go where we could crush the bad teams
for sure
and could not play with the good teams? It's much harder to get over that hurdle than this. But with that said, we need to beat these teams because the ultimate goal, and we hinted about it a little bit of the podcast last week, is to stay out of the play-in. And really, I even say...
Unless Milwaukee's the 2.
Yeah, well, I was about to... You cut me off because that's where I was going. I said, you really want to stay... I'd rather be out of the play-in, obviously, because anything can happen. If you get in one of those play-in games, you're likely playing the Heat or the Magic or the Sixers, which will probably be getting Embiid back. So none of those are great matchups for us, especially, the Magic are just big and don't play. The Heat, come playoff time, just become like the best team in the league.
8 seed in the finals.
But you really don't want to play Boston. They are the best team in the league, at least playing right now. I'm not saying they'd be my favorite to win the championship. They're definitely the favorite out of the East. You can poke holes in almost any team, but they are 6 loaded deep. And then have enough on the edges to make it work. So what I'm looking for is to beat a lot of these teams. Now, I don't know if you looked at our schedule. They're not all back-to-backs, but we play most of these teams twice.
I have seen that.
We have Toronto twice, Brooklyn 3 times, the Lakers twice,
Dallas twice, New Orleans on not a back-to-back, but it's a home and away.
So we have a couple that we play, you play them twice and, let's call it 3 nights or whatever, and then a couple where you play one and then play 2 weeks later. I think we have that with the Bulls too or something. So we have a lot of these, but that does make it a little difficult. A lot of times when you get into those, where you're playing a team in close measures, you split them a lot. We saw that with the Milwaukee series when we had that, when we played one here and brought them back. So,
same with the Boston home and home.
Yeah, there you go. So that makes it a little more tricky, but that's the goal. I think you're just working right now. I think we're starting to see our lineup come together. I would not expect, once fully healthy and D. Smith slides back in, we know those 4 are the starters, and I think Nembhard's the 5th starter for sure now. I would think going into the playoffs. So we need to get the rotation down, which I think build Siakam in. I saw last night Caitlin Cooper had a lot where we were doing different sets again with Siakam. I'm sure Rick, with a little time off, was able to start, really looking into the film and looking at how we can integrate Siakam with Tyrese getting back up to speed too.
Yep.
So for me, the goals are try to stay out of the play-in or 7th seed.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that goes. You don't want that to bite you later. And then just get the team humming. So we've got easy schedules. We need to do what we did last night, take care of business against the easy opponents, and then see who we end up against.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's all you can really do at this point is control what's in front of you. It's crazy that, we're down to 25 games and a lot of winnable games, but that doesn't mean a whole lot. I do like you touching on that point around this team being able to beat the really good teams, unlike where we were at in the McMillan years. Easy for me to say, because some of that comes down to some of that championship. A lot of the. If you listen so much of this weekend, if you paid any attention this week, it's all about Reggie and Larry and all this. And everybody that was talking about winning at a high level was about believing you could win at a high level, having this confidence that when you walk on the floor, you're worthy of beating the Celtics or the Bucks or the Knicks or whoever it is. And we've already proven that we can do it. So there should not be a lack of belief. Now, you still got to go out and execute. Our defense has been, we let the Pistons back in the game last night, but that's been our bugaboo all year. I do hope that as we get healthy and what seems like solidify Nembhard in that starting 2 spot, because it feels like, I agree with you, it feels like that's where we're going. I hope we continue to see some improvement there. I've been really impressed with Tyrese's defense just in the last 2 or 3 games, getting hands in passing lanes and things. Now, he's cheating a little more than I would like, because he's getting beat on backside cuts and things. There were a lot of lobs that happened in last night's game.
Due to him.
And maybe you couldn't see it on the television, but we were sitting in that corner section in club. And, when he cheats off to try and cut off that pass to the corner, basically what ends up happening is you get the penetration, the big has to help from the backside, and then the guy who's in the opposite corner is open for either a 3 or a layup or dunk, depending if it's a big. That's where they were getting those oops to Duren, among others. So it was, we've got to be a little careful there and a little bit more fundamental, but I do like Tyrese's activity. Obviously it is his weakest part of his game. So if he improves, and I like, having that Nembhard Neesmith combination in there, because they can typically take the opposing
They're putting
guards.
Ty on who's the non-shooter, the non-threat, offensive threat.
We've got I want to say we've got Dallas, Toronto, and New Orleans,
and the New Orleans,
all 3 at home. You'd really like to see us go 2-1 at least in that. I mean, Toronto should be a win. If you can pick, Dallas is good. New Orleans has been playing well, so you got to get one of those at home. And if you can start this, 4-game home stand 3-1 before getting on the road.
The energy's high in the city with the team.
Yeah,
everybody's buzzing. This is a time to, and I mean, if you look at the East standings right now, it's basically half a game from 6.
Yeah, you really
8.
need it.
It's all right there, depending on how you want to look at it. So, and this is where you got to take. I mean, Dallas is going to be a really good test. It's one of those games where I would hope to win with the home court advantage. If you look at our records this year, I think they're about the same as us. Don't quote me. But, we're going to have to see how that plays out. But this will be a really good stretch to come out, try to get a little bit of, room there with these teams. As the Sixers fall back without Embiid still, the Magic are right behind us, the Heat are right behind us. Try to get a little bit of wiggle room.
Yeah. One thing, because I said we were going to touch on it, and we'll just spend a minute on it before we kind of move on to the next segment. But where are we at with Jarris Walker? I thought last night he was going to get in the game, and it just never happened. And I'm I'm scratching my head a little bit.
Yeah, we had a quote that I sent you the other day, and it was basically Rick Carlisle saying it wasn't a punishment that we sent Jarris Walker to the G League, that we wanted him to become like a leader there amongst that group. I'm just going to say, love Rick, all that. I hate this kind of bullshit. I don't buy it. If you watch any of those Mad Ants clips, Jarris Walker's a really funny guy, and I'm sure gets along with them.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for him and his leadership qualities right now. He needs NBA run. This has been hit on a lot, so I don't want to overdo it. We all want to see Jarris Walker minutes. I think at this point we can assume they are not coming this year.
Yeah.
Really it sounds like if there's going to be any emergency minutes, it's going to be Shepherd and a combination of Doug right now. Looks like what it's going to feel. That's unfortunate. I can only say we'll let this slide. And I sent you this too. Right now, he has the least minutes of any top 10 pick in the draft taken last year. He has less than players like Trace Jackson Davis and a lot taken beyond him.
Yeah.
And we're not that good that we shouldn't be able to get some of these guys some runs. But this is Rick's MO. He didn't like to play young guys in Dallas. Brunson went through the same thing early in his career with the Dallas over there. So I get it. I will say this. Next year, he has to have an ingrained 15 minutes a game.
Yeah.
He's playing 7 minutes on each half He doesn't have to be the starter. Now Siakam, that, we'll see where his role, but he must be getting consistent minutes.
I agree. I mean, he's too talented. We've seen too many flashes of his ability to, and I understand he's not. Doug McDermott spaces the floor. He brings an entirely different skill set, veteran presence. He has some, rapport with obviously Carlisle and McConnell and whatever. You just got to find time for him on the floor. And frankly, kudos to Obi Toppin, because Obi has come in and just continues to earn that spot
100%.
Over and over and over. And that's a good thing for us.
Last night, he looked great.
He was phenomenal last night. I was so impressed with his minutes.
The rebounding, his shooting we've talked about a lot, but his rebounding was impressive. He had a couple nice dimes last night.
Block. I really have got to give credit where credit's due, because this is a guy that, even before we brought in Siakam, had found his way to the bench because we were going to bring in Jalen Smith and go big, and there was a lot of turmoil, and he has just continued to find ways to be effective. Obviously, in a contract season, I hope we can find a way to keep him and get Jarris Walker on the floor. Yeah, particularly
Jarris has showed flashes at the three for sure.
He has, and I think Obi's shooting allows us, if he's shooting the way he is now, because his stroke looks great. It physically,
it's smooth.
Yeah, physically it looks
and
like
he can get into it pretty fast for his size.
He has a better shot than I even saw last year.
No doubt.
I knew he could shoot a little, and it was like part of his game, but not now.
He's a shooter.
Yeah.
He
takes the shot. I'm like, okay, I think that's going in, and it has been more times than not. It seems like. So, obviously not really more times than not, because he's shooting like 40%, but whatever. I think there could be some lineups, particularly because Walker has shown an ability to be a facilitator, that connector piece. We've talked about it. So we're running long on Walker, but I just, listen, we know we're not good enough yet. So if you're not developing these young guys.
And that's the key word, development. We have seen first-round picks specifically that the Pacers have taken. Goga, we never gave him a run. Now, I wasn't a huge fan, but we never gave him a run.
Nope.
Aaron Holiday lost his minutes to T.J. McConnell, another first-rounder. Chris Duarte ended up getting shifted out when he had those injuries, and then he kind of fell out of the rotation. We've seen, if you wanted to point, it's not just drafting that the Pacers have struggled in. It's player development. We got to get these guys run.
For sure.
And look at what Shepard's doing. We saw him knock down some shots last night. We're seeing him get a little bit more comfortable. Now, he did have another one where he passed because he had missed a few in a row, but that's what rookies do.
Yeah. He's getting his feet wet, and I continue to love what I see there. I just think, we got to find the time to get him on the floor, and hopefully the coaching staff, I'm sure they feel the same way, and, it's a balance. Obviously, we've heard that from the front office, Chad Buchanan, that we're trying to, win now, but also plan for the future. This is more of a plan for the future. I get that. And we're talking about winning games to try and get seeding. So, it's not like I'm not making it seem like it's an easy button.
It'll be a bigger conversation next year. Yeah. He must be playing.
Has to. He's too talented not to. Just flat out.
And he's not like a total. Some of these guys like Cam Whitmore come in, he was like 18 and a half. He's 20. He's going to be 21 next year. You need to get him in the game.
Got to get him some run. So, all right, let's go on. We're going to try something new here. I'm going to let you take the reins.
So we're just going to basically do what are the odds. So if we've got any gamblers out there, I took these last night before the Pistons game. Now, I was under the assumption we win, and we did, so it all still is relatively should be the same. Nice. But we're just going to go through basically like championship, East, what are the odds? So we'll just start with the big one, Brad, and this is high odds. I'll try to give you, because the really high ones are tough to get. There'll be some easier ones. Okay. What do you think the odds are that the Pacers win the championship?
Oh, man. You're putting my...
this one is probably... Like I said, these are in the very... don't go absurd.
No, I know.
1 in 1,000, but...
No, I would say for the Pacers to win the championship right now... 1 in 50.
1 in 50. It is 1 in 120.
Is it really?
It's pretty high odds, I thought, for that. We don't get a lot of love. We were right there with like the Magic odds I saw. So 1 in 120 if you think there's a chance.
Well, hell, I would have bought it for 150 or 1 in 50. So shit. 120.
120.
Okay. I listen. We're the 6th seed. So I guess I'm just more bullish.
You'd think, though, with 8 teams making the playoffs, I know the Celtics and Nuggets and those guys, but I was as well.
Let me ask you this, and I don't know what you have on your notepad. Obviously, podcast listeners can't see that you've got some things in front of you, but Did you look? I'm assuming Boston's number 1.
Yes.
And are they? What are they? 1-10 or
they were 1-4.
1-4. Okay.
I think it was the Nuggets and the Celtics still had the highest odds there. The Nuggets have fallen. The Celtics have been at like plus 450 about all year.
That's pretty. Yeah, that
even
makes
coming
sense.
in. So now we'll go. What about just the East?
Okay, it's not linear, obviously, so I'm not going to go 1-60. I would say like to win the East, maybe like 1-85.
1-35.
Is it seriously that big of a drop?
So, yeah, it's 1-35 in the East. Crazy. Now, these I will say, there's no way to get an edge on Vegas. These are the weird ones where you can kind of get the movement where they don't totally have a feel. But 1-35, that's a little, hey, if we can beat, let's say we draw Milwaukee the first round, we take them because we can. And then it's, again, never root for injury, but this is how the Raptors did it. If Tatum goes down, all of a sudden it's wide open.
For sure. That seems like, yeah, okay. I listen, man, I'm making myself look bad here.
Now this will go the opposite. So this one's tough. So think we're going now. These will not be high odds. These are low odds.
Yeah.
So what are the chances the Pacers make the playoffs?
I may cheat here because I think I heard this the other day. I think we were like something around an 89 or 90% chance of making it.
So for the gamblers, we're minus 1,200, which in other words, you'd have to bet $100 to win 10, basically.
Wow. Yeah. And honestly, with as much volatility as there is, and the fact that we're in the 6th seed, it feels really high.
Super high. Insanely. I think that as the gambler in me, I would never do it. I hate gambling against us. If I'm looking through, because there's a couple, it's like the Magic have very similar odds, and I'm like, you fall to that 7th seed, you play the Heat, you lose your one game against, Chicago or Atlanta.
I was going to say, the play-in is the ultimate,
it's 2 games.
Killer. And as we've talked about on this podcast, yes, we've beaten some of the best, but Miami, even Philly with Embiid, the Magic for sure, horrible matchups for a one-game scenario. I would be sweating that out.
If we were in reverse, I would not have guessed our playoff odds would have been that high if you were doing this for me.
Hell no.
So now we'll go, what do you think Vegas has our total over-under wins at? So coming into the season, we were at 37.5, I believe, depending on what sports book you were using.
Yep.
Obviously, that we have surpassed that coming in. So what do you think our total win total is? We are, I don't know.
We're 31-24 right now.
32 with the win last night.
Well, no, we were 30-24 going in. Okay. Yeah, because I just remember that going in, and I think now we're 31-24. Maybe I could be wrong, but it's somewhere close.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it's got to be, if we got 20. We got to win 2/3 of the games. I'm going to say 45, 46 wins, something like that.
45.5.
Is it really? Okay, yeah. So, hey, I'm redemption. I'm a little bit better than I've been.
The first ones are really hard to get. Yeah. That's why I was trying to lead you in. So 45.5 wins. So to put that in perspective, with the Detroit win last night, to hit the over, you'd have to go 14-11. To hit the under, it's only 13-12.
Okay.
Now, the under is the favorite. It was like minus 120 to plus 118 or something. So you get a little favor on the over. If I had to put money, I think I'd go on the over. I think 46 is the number.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I just see, particularly with what you touched on, is these playing these teams 2 times, because adjustments get made. I mean, you're seeing somebody.
You have film on them now. You're going to come back and hit them with the punch, and Carlisle's as good as anybody with a lot of these sort of adjustments. So
for sure, but it comes down to matchups too. Yeah. So it's like if it's the wrong team, I mean, I think of a team like. I do think we're going to struggle against New Orleans. Yeah. I think with Brandon Ingram and Zion, I think we may have, and we've got them twice in the next week or so. So that's interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay, I would tend to agree with you.
I went through and tried to just kind of be like win here, loss here, and just see. And I ran it a few times, and obviously there's a difference. I did have us right at about 14 every time I went.
Okay.
14-11, 3 games over 500 through that 25-game stretch, I think feels about right.
Yeah. You know what? I'll just say this. As a fan, set aside the odds, I would sign off for 45 or 46 wins right now.
A 45 would be great.
And wherever we landed in the seeding, let it play out. Yeah, even if that's the 7th seed, I think you have to take that. So if listen, I hope Vegas is right because I would take that right now.
So there's just a few. These I won't have you guess because they'd be almost impossible.
No, at least hit me with one.
Okay.
I want to try.
So this will be fun then. Rick Carlisle, Coach of the Year.
Oh, wow. That's
he's I'll give you at least a hint. I've got a few of these where like Tyrese and Matherin for 6-man, Tyrese for MVP and clutch player. He's got the best odds of any of them to do
of
something.
any of the ones you're about to rattle off. Okay. Which is understandable. I mean, listen, we were a lottery team. We had the 7th overall pick.
Yeah.
I think we were supposed to have the 8th and we got the 7th in the lot. So I mean, we were a bottom half team and obviously playing much better now. I'm trying to think. In my head, I'm trying to go through, okay, who are the surefire Coach of the Year candidates? Start with Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I even on, there's not a lot that are really, am I missing? So, like, I feel like in the NFL, it was like kind of obvious who was going to win Coach of the Year just because of some of the things that played out, with Cleveland and Houston and, among others. But,
I can read. I'll read. So he was 5th in odds.
Okay, that feels about right. So
Mark Dagnall, Chris Finch, Bickerstaff, and Ty Lue are the 4 in front of him.
Okay, so is that Minnesota, OKC, Clippers, and then who else was in there?
You said you see Bickerstaff.
Okay. Interesting. I'm gonna say if he's 5th overall, I'll go 1-50.
He's 1-20.
Okay. All right.
Not crazy odds. I wouldn't go out on the limb. I think it's going to go to one of those 2 Western Conference coaches there.
I think OKC. Yeah. I would lean OKC, and not because. Listen, Shea has just played so good, and they're getting great play out of these young guys.
Jalen and Chet Chet's going to be in the defensive, all-team conversation, might not make it, but he's in there already as a rookie, an older rookie, but still a rookie. And Jalen Williams is maybe one of the best third, guys. Yeah. He's not an all-star, but if he's right there.
He had the winning bucket for the final in Rising Stars. But, I mean, I just love that. And that's not a shot at Finch at all. I mean, Minnesota's been great, but you kind of saw Ant making this progression.
Yeah.
Karl Anthony Towns has been a multi-time All-Star. Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year. You've still got Mike Conley. I mean, there was a little bit more to work with there. I'm not as surprised.
They were in the playoffs last year.
Yeah. A lot there. So 1-20 for Carlisle. That's not a bad. I mean, listen, if we go on a run here, you could see that. Yeah, you could see that paying off.
You could jump into. I mean, the 3 seed isn't technically even the 2 seed really isn't like blow your. I mean, it'd be like a 6-game difference, but you
just never know. Yeah. I mean, Cleveland, Milwaukee's reeling. They got to figure it out and fast. And New York can't get off the injury bug. No, I mean, I didn't even realize OG had surgery.
Yeah, he I guess happened at the right time. We're still looking at about 2 weeks from today.
2 more. Okay, yeah.
And that's reevaluated, so you never know. And I saw Bojan was out, I think, last night too with something.
Okay.
Might have just been an illness. I'll have to check on it.
I mean, you love their roster, but they, and I will say this, talking about coaches, that's the only reason I'm even going on this tangent. Thibodeau has been known to play his guys hard and get injuries and overextend and not have them ready for the postseason.
Correct.
So,
when you bring in a lot of new pieces, we were talking about it early in the podcast. We want Siakam to start fitting in, Carlisle to get used. OG's not playing, Bojan's not playing. There's still Mitchell Robinson's still out. They're gonna have to bring him in.
Julius
Randle, yeah. So
that's something to keep an eye on in the next month and a half or so.
So just 2 more of these though.
Okay.
So Matherin, 6th man. So they're going up. If that's my hint.
Yeah. No, I would have taken those. The odds were probably better last year at this time for him on 6 man.
They were there. I don't remember. They were probably about the same.
He's got to be. Listen, I've been all over the board on Matherin. Love him, hate him. He's driving me nuts. 1-70.
1-70. 1-40.
40.
Which I think is low. He's 7th in odds right now.
Is he really?
Mm-hmm. I think it's a lot. If you looked at bench scoring, I'd have to imagine he's still with his, he's at what this year, 15,
14 and change. Yeah.
So he's got to still be up there to some degree. I mean, but I thought it was a little surprising.
I'm just going to say this, and I know that where the hell is T.J. McConnell on that list?
Yeah, he's
I mean, because if you're asking me who I want coming off the bench to that's really providing that sixth man spark, it's TJ.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I know he doesn't do it night in and night out, but he seemingly does it in really important spots. And 3J was out last night. 3J
had 2 of them, baby.
3J was out. I could not believe it. I was sitting there and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? That was all. I would take a flyer on TJ. I mean, I know he'll never win it.
He was not on there, unfortunately.
Of course he's not. And that's funny. It's funny how the pundits and Vegas views it, because I view Mathurin as a great player. We think the world of him. He's on the rise, but he's not been as important as I mean, he's disappeared and Shepard's come in, or Nemhard if he wasn't starting, or Buddy, or whoever. I mean,
absolutely.
McConnell's been way more consistent in my mind. But
Vegas with these, if you get a game line, they've got all the information that you could possibly have and the data to make these lines. But these ones, because they're media vote and player vote, they kind of have to try to read the room. So that's where you can get sometimes some angles, although none of these, I think, are probably.
I think the media is higher on Benedict Mathurin than I am.
I would
the
definitely
national
say,
media.
When I hear I listen to a lot of the Ringer guys, and they still bring him up, and rightfully so. He should still be talked about in that sense to a certain degree. But last one, this one's actually probably my favorite because it's the most ridiculous and subjective one.
Okay.
Tyrese Halliburton to be clutch player of the year. Now, early in the season, he was at like plus 800. I wanted to look up. I don't remember. He did have a few of those. They weren't buzzer beaters, but late daggers and some assists.
Yeah.
He was up there with guys like Shea. I think Dame is still leading it.
Okay.
But what do you think his odds are on that?
Interesting. I mean, he's got to be in the top 5, 6, 7.
He is not.
Seriously.
So this is where if I was going to throw some
down. Okay.
Because especially on these awards, and I'll say it like this, when Mathurin made the all-rookie first team last year, a lot of it was his public perception was so good early on because he was so good to come out of the gates that kind of lied him.
Carried.
No, he deserved it too, but
it carried
it helped him carry it in, where you can also do the opposite, where if you come alive late, you can ride that narrative out. So if somebody comes out of this break and has 2 buzzer beaters, and we're in all these close games, which you don't know, we're kind of one of those teams that play these closer games.
For sure.
So if you get into a lot of clutch time, you hit 2 buzzer beaters, win, let's say 7 out of 8 clutch games to finish, you're right there.
Some recency bias. Interesting. Okay, so he's not in the top 6 or 7.
Not even close.
Oh my God! Well, I mean, I guess that's just part of that. Probably shame on me is I'm not a league pass guy. I don't watch every game, and so I know who I would think just off the cuff are clutch players. But I think you're bringing up a really sound point or element to this, which is the metrics of this and what they deem as clutch and how they determine the scenarios and point differentials and what have you that create these clutch scenarios. I'm going to say you've made me think I've got to go way high. So I'm going to say like 200 to 1.
You hit it on the dot.
Seriously. Wow.
1 in 200.
There you go. Oh, what a fucking joke.
That was awesome. I will say, I'm looking at this list because I actually so Steph is leading it right now, which, okay.
Well, and he would have been on my short list. Obviously,
it's Steph, Shea, Dame, Luka, which all makes sense. But I've got some Mikal Bridges over him. Maybe Paolo. Trey Young. I don't. I know if there's some value. If I'm telling you, just wake up. If next week he has 2 buzzer beaters, which remember when DeRozan had that short stench around Christmas where he had back-to-back, one in our building that I was there for, but that is one where it's like 1 in 200. I had to double check it actually while he was talking because I thought, I was like, it can't be. Maybe it was 1 in 20, and I didn't look right. But I have doubled down and have it. If you put $10, you can win $2,000 if he gets it. So
you know what? I may take I hit it on the head. So maybe that's a sign that I need to go cash that in. Maybe I'll go more than 10. That's just very appealing.
That's just one of those. I'm telling you, with the way the media works, and if you listen to all these guys, because I listen to like Zach Lowe and Bill Simmons and their votes, and Kevin O'Connell and all these guys who have votes or they talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
They even this one, they're like, what is this? Like, it is totally just who hit the big shot.
Right.
And right now, if you think like who's hit all these buzzer beaters this year, nobody comes to mind.
Yeah. Oh, and the thing is, it's like, okay, Steph Curry's leading it. The Warriors are having kind of
They're in the 10th seed.
Yeah, middle of the road, not that great year. Like Dame is noticeably having an off year.
Yeah.
Obviously, they've been 3-7 since Doc took over, something like that.
That's where if you wanted to go even low odds, I like Shea in there, like plus 800 too.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll have to go take a look at that. That's interesting. I like that though. That was a lot of fun. I'm glad I somewhat redeemed myself there at the buzzer. I'm the clutch player.
These are impossible. The early ones, you don't know how to set a bar. That's why I tried to give you a little room on there. But
well, listen, we've kind of recapped it all here. All-Star Weekend was awesome. It really was a lot of fun. I hope this city gets a chance, maybe not in our lifetime. I hope they get a chance to host it again. One little sidebar on that as we bring this in for a landing. Some stuff was coming. Did you see the requirements now that have been talked about?
I don't know where. Okay,
so there was an article in the Oklahoman. So Oklahoma City's building a new arena. I'll be very brief because I know we want to bring this
for like the All-Star
All-Star game. So they were like new updated. It was like a 3 metric requirement, I guess, and it was basically you had to have a minimum number of hotel rooms, square footage, flights. Well, I think 1 or 2 of them we don't meet anymore, the criteria. Okay. So it's kind of like, okay, well, that's interesting. Oklahoma City wasn't even close. A lot of small market teams aren't going to hit it. And so it's just some people, I guess, were explaining it that maybe this is like the starting point and exceptions can be made. Yeah. But if I was a betting man coming off this segment, I don't think we see the All-Star game again in our lifetime. I would love if they get away from neutral site, I would love to see an in-season tournament or something like that if they start to go around the league for that. But you never know. We're getting ready to go into NFL Combine is going to ramp up in the next week or so. I forget when that starts, but the convention center will be flip back over for that. And we've got a game on Sunday against Luka Doncic and the Mavs.
Should be a fun one.
I did hear Doncic took a flight to Croatia right after the All-Star game, hopped in a plane from Indy, flew to Croatia, spent 2 days on an island, and then got back. So hopefully we get him with a little jet lag.
Well, I thought he pulled something on one of those dunks. I don't know if you could see it in person. He went down, held his groin, and then looked at the coach and put his hand up. Now he ended up staying in, and he was moving slow. Now he always that's his game. But
yeah, he's the old man game, and somehow just is awesome and always gets his shot off. And I've never seen him in person, so I'm really excited to see him on Sunday. And we'll check in. I don't know what we'll do next. I was actually talking. Well, we can talk off air. We'll come at you guys here with something exciting in the next couple of days. And
I'll lead you off with a question, Brad.
Yeah,
here.
Please.
Are you looking forward, or do you think you want a farewell tour at some point?
A farewell tour of what?
Oh, did you see this?
No, I didn't.
Oh, LeBron 50-50 if he wants a farewell tour at the end of his career.
God.
50% for sure, 50% I need it.
Yeah, I was going to say, with that ego, oh, God. I can't even comment.
I know.
I
assumed you just saw it, but yeah.
I did not see it. There will be a tour.
Oh, no shit.
And I will be in attendance because I'm a Pacers fan, but I want no part of it.
None.
I hate LeBron. All right, signing off.